You've heard from me from emails, I'm sure. Janet Kenley, the Regional Director for Northern California.
So thanks for coming out on at least from where we come from, a beautiful Monday evening. I know it's been a long day for everybody already. The intent of the meeting here, we want it to be very informal, so please ask questions. We don't have the answers to all of them, but we'll try to provide them when we get back, and whatever means that it's the best way to disseminate. I'll give you a little bit of my background. So my name is Roseanne Stevens, and I'm the Vice President of Field Operations and Volunteer Resources and Youth Protection. What that long title means is I have the opportunity to work with Janet and her counterparts around the country, primarily with FRC teams, working on our events. I'm responsible for helping areas get to implement the district model with other colleagues. Our volunteer resources group that manages our volunteer management system and kind of trains key volunteers is also my responsibility, and our youth protection program. And so in that capacity, I report to Don Bosey, who's the president of FIRST, and many of you have probably met him along the way or talked to him along the way. And Gabrielle Golden works for me as one of my field operations managers, and so I have the country divided kind of in half to help manage about 50 or so direct reports on one side of the equation, and her counterpart couldn't be here tonight. And then Miriam Samerno works for, I didn't say that right.
That's right.
Works on with FRC teams, particularly around the districts, and is very instrumental in helping teams or areas actually implement the model. So she's got all the answers to a lot of the logistics questions, etc. So on the way down here, she was having one of the first meetings with our friends in the Peachtree region, so Georgia, who's in their second year of this particular model. So again, please feel free to ask questions. Prior to working for FIRST, I was a volunteer, like many of you are, for about 10 years in the state of Michigan, and I was in the state as a volunteer the first year they implemented this model, so it was really interesting to watch. So I can maybe provide a little bit of insight as to how that is going and how that went as well. I was 25 years in the auto industry, and now I'm kind of on my second career. And great opportunity. About 2011, some of you may know, but many of you are new, we did kind of a road show about the district model in the state of California, something similar to what we're doing now. And that is we kind of started in the north, put together a series of meetings to introduce what it was all about. And at that point in time, there were only 2 areas in the country who were running this particular model. So we were more explaining kind of how it works and advantages or disadvantages, and there was a lot of consternation about that at the time. But I think in this state, maybe the tides turned a little bit, and people are more curious about exactly what has to happen to implement the model. And the plan that, excuse me, well, that's kind of, and the plan that Michael and any other team members in here who were renters, I know a couple of folks helped you put that together. Are any other represented in the room?
RC's planning on coming in just a little bit. He's late with traffic, but he'll get here.
Okay. Actually, I thank you. I mean, it's really a great piece of work, and so we're just going to try to augment that and talk more about maybe what has to happen or where some of the gaps are in the state. So again, thanks, and I know he worked very hard on that. And I think also a couple of conversations with Frank America kind of putting that together. So again, on behalf of all of us at FIRST, thank you. Because without you, we don't have a program. And I know it doesn't seem like it maybe on any given day that you're working with your team, so you're making a big difference. And they know it. So again, thank you for volunteering and everything that you're doing for FIRST. So Gabrielle. So Gabrielle's going to help me drive here and use the power. So while that's coming up, how many people know what we were talking about when we say the district model? Pretty much everybody. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a little bit of background. Does everybody have an idea how the name originated? Might that be an interesting piece of trivia to share? Okay. So Detroit Michigan was the first state to pilot the model. And how the name came about is they were very pragmatic and very disciplined as to how they wanted to grow at first in the state of Michigan, particularly FRC. So they took the state, what we do, we live in Michigan, and they coordinated it and they delineated areas in districts, not necessarily around county lines or even around school districts, but just broke up the state. They wanted to grow here, 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 here. That's where the name district came from, nothing more than that, so it's kind of stuck. And it implies a competition model for FRC in the way that the competition model works. And sometimes that gets a little bit confusing, but that's all we mean. It's specific to the FRC program. So this is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. I think everybody saw the agenda or maybe got a copy of the agenda. How the district model works, what the benefits to the teams are, what it looks like to date, the areas running it, what it takes to be successful, some minimum criteria, and again, a lot of this was covered in the plan that Michael and the team put together. State of California, the status, some of our impressions, maybe some of you have different impressions. And then we'll talk about maybe next steps, how we can move forward and maybe what needs to happen. So I'm not here to say you have to do this. It's not really what we want or how we're operating this model. We want areas to be ready, to be comfortable, and to want to move forward to this model. So we're not dictating anyone go this way. But because of the benefits to the team and some of the other residual benefits that districts are seeing, more and more teams are asking for this. Like I'm sure your teams are maybe asking, how can we get there? Why aren't we running it? So the first thing we do before any presentation is kind of remind us why we're all here doing what we're doing, is to inspire young kids to study math and science and go on to be future entrepreneurs and leaders. So on this slide, just in general, this is a pretty basic slide here that we're talking about. I'm going to use my set here so I don't have to have my back to you. The district model for FIRST is really a decentralized model that's run like the other programs that we have at FIRST. So FIRST Lego League, FIRST Lego League Junior, and FIRST Tech Challenge are run through partnerships. So that is that we have an agreement with, normally it's a university or a 501c3 to run and operate the program. FRC is the only program that's run differently from headquarters. So moving to the district model is now looking for a local 501c3 organization, smaller events, you all know that, closer to home, a sense of local community, and there's all sorts of stories about that we can share. And a key goal is to grow FIRST locally. So after Michigan, congratulations, California has the largest number of FRC teams. Congrats on that. And where does the money go? So now we're delivering values to the teams instead of necessarily putting money into our events, our regional events. And there's a lot of ways that that's done. The teams get more value. Some 501c3s now are able to fund teams to go to the championship, so that's another benefit. And the first championship slots are exclusive for California. And what I mean by that is there's 8 regional events in California, and so 6 qualifying spots to championship. So that's 48 slots of teams that participate in the state of California go to the championship. But if a team from Nevada wins or Arizona comes in and wins, that's one of the spots. But in the district model, all championship spots are exclusive to California teams. So that's a benefit. This is a slide that I find particularly helpful because in a picture, it kind of shows exactly how the district model works versus the traditional regional model. So in the regional model, a team pays a fee, whether you're a rookie or a veteran. And you play one, you get your kit of parts, and you get to choose an event that you can afford to travel to or wherever your first event is. And then you may or may not go to the championship. In the district model, a team pays that same registration fee, $5,000 or $6,000, and you're playing in 2 events. And so in the regional model, based on kind of the number of teams, right, there's about 10 matches or so. And in the district model, because they're smaller events, about 40 team events, usually you can get at least 12 matches in. So already, for the same registration fee and a kit of parts, a team's playing twice the amount of matches. So from the district events, then the teams advance to a state championship, and then to the first championship, either Houston or St. Louis. Any questions? Or kind of move on? You can see there's,
Alright, so the first fee would cover the 2 district events. Is there an additional fee for?
There's an additional fee for the state championship, and we'll talk more about how that works. So why do we move to the district model? Again, a lot of you are familiar with this, so I don't have to spend too much time here on this particular event, but it's more efficient, more cost effective, teams get to play twice, it's more sustainable for returning teams, but I also think it's a real opportunity for a rookie team to get better established because you're already playing twice as much. You have that opportunity to reiterate and work on your rollout in between events. When I travel to district events and talk to a rookie team about, why do they like first or what's so great about this, and many of them will say, including the veterans, that this is a great opportunity to work on your robot, play more than once, because maybe it's not the case in this state, maybe just in some areas, but in some states, some of these teams are kind of one and done. There's no other opportunity to play, especially as a rookie. So huge benefit, I think, to the district. So there's more events. They're closer to home. Reduce the travel costs for some teams. As you continue to grow, there's probably an opportunity for a team not to have any overnight costs. Maybe not initially, but eventually you can get there. Gives obviously more access to local communities and families to gather around a first robotics event, and it can help elevate FRC teams to varsity status. And I'm pretty keen on that because I've watched that happen, particularly in Michigan, where a high school or just a local community will rally around, oh, we've got a robotics team or teams, and all of a sudden they're gaining stature, which is, I think, what we want, just like a football team or basketball team. There's also an opportunity, just to stop here for a second, we were talking about this earlier. In the district model, the judged awards and all the awards are exactly the same as they are in the regional model. So the team attribute awards along with the machine awards. And one of the things that has come out in a couple of the other areas is that because the teams are winning locally and have a trophy to put in their high school or to show a potential sponsor locally, it's actually helping their fundraising activity. So it's another kind of side benefit of that. And again, more plays, a better return on investment. And again, kind of, as we're talking about, the registration fee doesn't change. There's 1 kit of parts, 2 district event plays, and 10 to 12 matches. Usually these events are 30 to 40 teams, max, 40 max. Actually, we're seeing more in the 32 to 36 range for events to accommodate some venues. There's a state championship, and the district events are usually 2-day events. More of them now actually are running, you might find this interesting, not that you want to tax your volunteers, but a Saturday, Sunday event, just to be able to get into a venue. And the district and the regional championship looks like in our world, as we would say, a traditional regional. Usually they're in high schools, and I know around the country, we have a lot of large high schools, at least in Michigan, due to the weather, and other parts of the country might have large high schools, but there's not indoor facilities. So I know that can be a limitation. But community colleges and/or colleges, some areas are now turning this bidding for venues into a little bit of a bidding war to work to the advantage of the district to say, hey, you want to host a bunch of smart kids and their parents for the weekend, and there's a major advantage to the university, and all of a sudden the university wants to provide, or the college, community college if possible, provide a lot of activity in kind. And as we move forward, we can put you in touch with folks who have done a variety of things around venues. And the target cost, I'm sorry, that's okay. The target cost, yeah, no, the target cost per location for district event is about $25,000. Now, I think it takes maybe a year or two to kind of get there. Some events might be less than that, some events might be twice than that, and I think a lot of it has to do with market. And I put together a very rough budget to kind of share with you, and I assume that a cost twice as high, because I just think maybe in this market, you might need it. And the bag and tag, which is, universal right now. So. Any questions? Okay, so here's another way to kind of look at the financial piece, and I just wanted to spend another minute on this, just to be clear, because this is where sometimes if you're not working with it all the time, it gets a little bit confusing. So the traditional model, team pays a registration fee, there's one event, 50 teams, although in this state we have regionals at much higher than 50 teams, so it's sometimes a challenge to get in the 10 matches. And the sponsorship for a regional are somewhere between 75 and 150K. I would say 150K is really on the high side. We've been driving the cost down for the last several years, but still, a significant event. And event costs are three main items: venue rent, catering, and event production. Those are the three main drivers of cost of any regional. And the venue, sometimes as an aside, the venue will drive the catering, so you're stuck with the caterer, so to speak, so there's no flexibility. But in some of these other venues, there's the opportunity to bring in an outside caterer, and for the teams in particular, because some of our sites, as you know, you can't even bring in water, the teams can bring in their own food, and so, things just kind of continue to roll in terms of cost benefits. An additional play, additional regional event is $4,000 per team. There's no district championship, but then the first championship fee is $5,000. So everybody's familiar with that. Okay, so in the district model, kind of comparing side by side, I just want to explain a little bit here again. So there's $5,000, of which $1,000 is shared back. So first collects $5,000 for a rookie, or $6,000 for a rookie, $5,000 for a veteran, and $1,000 of that registration fee per team is shared back with the local entity that's running the model. So a team plays two district events. There are about 40 teams. They get 12 matches. And again, the cost for one of those events is, we use a figure of 25K, but I would say probably 35 to 40 might be more likely. And then the additional play, so the second district event is included already in the initial registration fee. But if a team wants to play an additional district event, and so what we mean here is that in some of the districts today, there's additional capacity. So if a team wants to play a third time, the district entity sets that fee, and right now it's somewhere between $500 and $1,000. And so if a team can play again, this third play doesn't count towards advancing to the championship, by the way, but a team just has the ability to play, needs some capacity. It's a revenue opportunity for the local entity. But I say that only not to get carried away, because the districts are running pretty tight. There isn't a whole lot of capacity, but there's an opportunity here. And then, of course, a district team can play outside the district for an additional $4,000. But a team not in the district area, not participating in the district area, so take, for example, Salt Lake City team. If California goes to the district, just say in 2019, and Utah is still operating the way that they are in a traditional regional, the Utah team cannot come and play in California. And then there's the district championship fee, $4,000, and then the championship fee of $5,000. So if you look at the costs, and just say you're a regional team and you're going to play a second event, and you're going to play obviously go to the championship, that's what, $14,000. So you've had 20 plays or so. You're that same team in a district, and you're going all the way to the championship. You played 36 times. had 36 matches. So it's the return on investment for the teams in terms of ROI. And again, this is, everybody's nodding, so you've already figured this out. Okay. And here's another way to look at the costs in terms of the regional versus the district for the teams. And again, you can see in the district the number of seeding matches or matches is significantly higher than in the traditional regional. Next. Any questions or anything, any comments, anything not clear? You're all so well educated, so makes my job easier. This is a much different meeting than in 2011, let me just say. So I thought you might find it interesting. So in 2017, and I'll tell you, I can at least talk about 2018 as well. 10 areas are now running the district model. So you can see them here, and they're not necessarily in order of implementation at all. They're just how I go around the country and think about them. But 42%, almost 50% of the teams now, the total FRC teams, will be working in this model. And the two new for this year is Ontario and Israel. So we have our first international district, which is pretty exciting. And albeit, if you can imagine, for the Israeli teams, I think only one is able to travel. So they're looking at an opportunity to provide more plays and also trying to accommodate some growth that they see as a result of FTC teams now matriculating to FRC. And just by way of information, I just thought I would share with you, you've probably already seen it if it's interesting to you. These 8 new events in 2017, 8 new regional events. But I just wanted to point out the 2 events in the center of this screen in Texas. So many of you may have seen on Chief Delphi or heard that Texas had planned to go to the district in 2017. Did anybody see that or catch wind of that? And the reason that they decided to wait is they didn't feel that they were financially viable. So that's why they put it off another year. And I can talk a little bit about what they're doing now to get financially viable. But what they've done is a couple of things. So we used to be, the Houston Regional was in the George R. Brown Convention Center, which we will be in for the championship. So they moved out of that convention center and went into 2 high schools where they currently do off-season events. So it's kind of practicing and getting ready for the district model in 2018. And then the new event in Waco is where they want, there will be a district event. And so again, they're in a preparatory school, university high school there. And again, in preparation for 2018. So just to give you an example of some of the practice that they're doing. Now they do have off-season events, not nearly as many as you have in this state, but now they're going to run some smaller events, and again, working on bringing their costs down. Any questions? Probably saw this on the. So 8 regionals is a lot. I think this is the most we've done, at least in my 6 years that we bring on in 1 year. So as you can imagine, it's a tax on the number of fields and FMS systems and all the logistics that go around. So, when we talk to areas and talk about kind of the minimum criteria of success, and I mean that in terms of minimum, some big things that we look at. So we also look, is there a local 501c3 organization in place? Because this is the organization that will now be responsible for signing the venue contracts, having the insurance that's required, being fiscally responsible at the end of the day. And many areas do, and many areas do not. And the 501c3s that are operating the district model today are all over the map in terms of responsibility. And by that I mean many of them run more than one program, but there's only 2 in the country, not counting international, because international is a little bit different, but 2 in the US that run all 4 programs, and that's the state of Washington and the state of Michigan. So 1 501c3, 1 board of directors runs all programs. So that's just the information, nothing more. Successful off-season events. We look for, volunteer-based key volunteers, or at least some bench strength of key volunteers. And I know that's more easily said than done. A board of directors is absolutely key, because at the end of the day, there's a fiscal agent here. And then fundraising capacity. So again, very minimal things. And so what I did, in kind of talking to the regional directors and kind of looking at what we've done in the past is, we took a stab at where California might be, just using a simple stoplight chart. And I'll explain kind of the thinking behind that. And maybe you would argue with me or not, or agree to some extent. So there's a 501c3 organization in place. I think Jim Beck went ahead and pulled First California, so the name.
First California Robotics.
First California Robotics, so the name's protected, and it's a 501c3 entity, and so that means that there's a tax exemption for donations. So you can be a charity, but then having your federal designation is the next step, and donors like to see that. So that's done. Definitely have successful off-season events, and I think there's 8, did you say? in the
There
state?
might be 8, I know there's 4 in Northern California.
So that's obviously green there. Minimum number of FRC teams. So when we started out asking areas to go to the district, just to make the plate interesting, the original threshold was at 120 teams. And then we kind of backed that off a little bit between 80 and 120. And now if you looked at Indiana and North Carolina and even Georgia, they were in the 65, 60 team range. So we've kind of, backed down a little bit because, again, a key driver, I'll use the example of North Carolina for wanting to implement this model is, number one, saw a tremendous aspect to grow first in that particular state, but also to give their teams additional opportunities to play because most of the teams in that state are one and done. So definitely at 267 teams.
268, I believe.
268.
So far.
That number's